Two Nerds and a Joke with Robert and Ernie. Can you believe these guys have kids?
Thank you, disembodied hot girl voice. This is Two Nerds and a Joke with Robert and Ernie. I am Ernie.
Hi, Ernie. And I'm Robert, as always.
As always.
As always. I've never changed.
Well, I'm going to say, I don't know why you had to mention as well, always, but okay, we'll go with that.
We'll go with it.
We'll go with that. We had a little hiatus.
Tiny
hiatus, so sorry if you guys were out there waiting for the next installment of your favorite podcast.
Favoritist ever.
Ever.
Yes. And thank you for Instagram, actually. We're up to pretty significant numbers, like 30-something followers right now on Instagram. So yay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Continue to post and new content on there. One thing I was able to do at least, because we did have Con. And SuperCon, yes, SuperCon down in Miami. You may have seen some of the posts from that. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the usual sites. We have stuff and videos, some really cool videos I got of the two R2-D2s that were on Con.
That was my fave.
Yeah, dancing together. That was pretty sweet. But we will do a full special event podcast at some point of what happened at Con and go through all the cool stuff and what I did and what my friends did. And shout out to JLS Comics. Thank you for spending some time with us. I saw the article you wrote. It was awesome. Check out JLS Comics, and you'll see the link to the article there as well. He had a very, very nice things to say about Owl's Treasures and everything about his experience with us there. So awesome there. But we just had some stuff we had to take care of. Each of us got really busy. And we're back now, so stop your whining. And what do we have today?
We have a great interview with one of our friends of the podcast.
Yes, Ron. He is, we would call him a book professional nerd. He knows tons of things about authors and books. And the interview we have with him that you're going to hear here in a second really goes in depth on movies that came from books in the nerd topics and nerd genres and his opinions on them and what was the best one that ever kind of translated over and stuff like that. So really kind of cool, very informative, I would say, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it was definitely a good interview. So we had a lot of fun with Ron. And what else we have before we go into it? Do you have anything else?
We got some, you already mentioned the After Con special.
Yes.
We're going to be posting up some more content. We're still looking for people who would like to be guests.
Yes,
so
please.
Anybody who has any topics or anything that you'd like for us to discuss, upcoming down the pipe, we have a couple movies coming out. Ghostbusters.
Yes, Ghostbusters is a big one. Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Star Trek.
I'm excited about the Star Trek.
And Suicide Squad,
which we will be doing a lot of stuff for.
Yes, we're gonna hit Suicide Squad heavy.
Yes, that'll be the big one.
That'll be a big one.
Yes.
So all you
summer movie flicks.
Yes, some of you Suicide Squad fans out there, if you guys want to pipe in and join us for a little roundtable discussion, be more than happy to. Or send in any photos that you may have, or if you dress up like maybe Harley Quinn or any of the other characters in the movie, Deadshot. You know,
are we okay with guys that are dressing as Harley Quinn?
I don't know. If you could pull it off, so be it. So be it. If you could pull it off,
that would be funny.
That would be funny.
That would be awesome. But yeah, also one other side mention, another little plug here for JLS and Jesse Comics is you may have seen from his site on YouTube. He's actually doing Tuesday night comic book discussions every Tuesday. Hoping that me and Ernie can get on there at least once to be part of his grand panel live. And Ernie and I are looking at maybe doing something live in the near future, so keep your eyes and ears posted for that, just to kind of give it an experiment, try it out. So we also have a new thing that we are going to experiment with. We did, Twitter has Periscope, which is a live feed. So if you're on Periscope at all, come check us out. We're going to definitely do some stuff on there as well. So a new branch out for us. But I blather. Bloviate. So, Ernie, are we ready here?
I think we are. Let's roll the thingy.
Let's low the thingy. Tape! And here we go.
Welcome, everyone, to Two Nerds and a Joke with Robert and Ernie. I am Ernie.
I'm Robert.
And we're here today to bring you another wonderful episode of our little, somewhat weekly podcast. But it's still weekly, right?
It is weekly, except for last week, which we're going to get into.
Well, that's not our fault.
No. Sure.
It's never our fault.
Never our fault. But we do have a guest today.
And you ungrateful listeners, it's a free podcast. All right? We're not charging you for these things.
No,
we're giving this to you free.
Yes. But yes, we do have a guest today. His name is Ron.
Friend of the podcast.
Friend of the podcast. And Ernie, if you'll start us off with your glorious question that we love to hear.
The one question I always ask all of our guests is, give me your bona fides. What makes you nerdy?
Okay, what makes me nerdy? Oh, gee, where do I start? Well, first off, I didn't realize that at 50 years old, I'd be ending up on Sesame Street. I'm doing a podcast with Bert and Ernie, for God's sake.
Oh, God. Well, there you go. There's a joke.
Now, what clarifies me as a nerd, again, being 50, I'm sure, I know I'm older than Robert. Ernie, I suppose I'm older than you as well. I don't think you're 37 yet.
Oh, man.
What are you, 50? I don't know. I don't know how old you are. You know, it's through a phone. So I can't see you, you know.
August, I'll be 37. Thank you, sir. Thank you for bringing that up. But, you know.
Well,
that was just an age. I didn't say that you were. That was an age I threw out. You commented. I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
Yes,
Now, as I was saying, I have, I've been, surrounded by sci-fi, from the 60s and 70s at the height of cheesiness.
Oh, wow.
So there's many layers. There's Gruyere, there's blue cheese, some real stinkers. But I've always had a love of sci-fi. There was a series of books I read as a kid that I actually kept the books themselves, quality paperback books. The author was Alexander Key, and one of this book was called The Forgotten Door by Alexander Key. Whether it's a pen name, that was the name, but I'm sure you've heard of his other books, his other works. Either of you see Escape to Witch Mountain?
Yeah.
Yes.
Return to Witch Mountain?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
These are all written by Alexander Key.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, there you go. There's your you learn something new every day moment. I have always loved sci-fi. I remember a 70s TV movie. I don't for the life of me remember what it is, but there's a listener out there that remembers it. The character ran around in a silver jumpsuit, and he derived his superpowers by light energy, by the sun. And at the end of the episode, he's saved by the light of a firefly from exploding from dynamite in a cave. That's all I remember as a kid about this movie, and I can't remember the name of it. It drives me crazy. It's a fantastic movie as a kid.
Wow.
So, that's awesome.
I think that's my credentials. Do I pass muster?
Yeah, you definitely pass muster. Now, Ernie mentioned one thing that I actually want to get in with you too, Ron, because I know this past weekend for a lot of folks was a little bit of an interesting one because a lot of us fathers had our kids for the weekend, or quasi had our kids, or sort of had our kids, or something like that. Specifically, actually, if you don't mind me putting it out there, everybody, 3 men here, Ron, Ernie, and myself, who actually have children from a previous relationship. So we have that kind of sharing thing. And most exes, I hope most exes, say, hey, it's Father's Day, kick you out of the house, go spend time with Dad. I had my kids for a little bit longer than just Father's Day. I had them from Wednesday on, which is part of the reason why the podcast didn't really happen last week. So sorry about that, guys. That's partially my fault, but it's not really my fault. And then Ernie, you had your daughter for the weekend. What about you, Ron? Did you end up having your kid for the weekend?
I had dinner with her on Thursday night.
Well, okay.
Right. The ex had planned a long week away, leaving Friday morning over Father's Day weekend to head out of town to do a tour of Florida and the natural springs, which I actually went camping at another park with beautiful springs up at Kelly Park in Apopka, Florida. Great place to spend the afternoon to cool off during the summer. We highly recommend it to everybody, Kelly Park.
Nice.
Beautiful place. Anyway, she planned this without realizing that the weekend was Father's Day.
Ah.
I can't blame her because she's actually been going under some stress lately. We have two mutual people in our life that one is sadly in a hospice. Susan, I hope to God you're feeling better. You get better, but it doesn't sound good. And another friend is in the hospital awaiting a heart transplant.
Oh, geez.
So for several weeks, she was back and forth to the hospitals with my daughter, who was very upset about the whole thing. So she was I can't be mad at her.
No,
it's what it's time to get away, and I'll always have my daughter. So God willing, God bless.
Yes, absolutely. And Ron, for your daughter, have you passed along any of those nerd bona fides, as Ernie would put it, to her? Does she share in any of your nerd love, books or otherwise?
Oh, I've tried. She's a lost cause.
Oh, no.
She's a lost cause. I have a very close friend of mine who we grew up together. We grew up loving Star Wars, the Evil Dead movies. We saw Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 3, Bruce Campbell in the theater when it came out. Fell off the seat laughing our asses off. We grew up, both of us, with a love of sci-fi and movies. His daughter, his kids, march in the Disney parades for the Star Wars vacation.
Oh.
His daughter's on the website, just as Leia. His family, they got all the banners with the pins and all that stuff. I don't know. I don't want to read Harry Potter. Well, you got to read the book. I gave her the first 3 books of Harry Potter. You got to read these books. They're fantastic. I don't want to read them. I saw the movie. I didn't like Star Wars. Well, I saw it. It was okay. You made me watch it. It seems all right. So, unfortunately, the nerd dies with me. I'm the last surviving nerd.
Wow, that is sad. That's sad. I mean,
man, that's heart-wrenching, man. That's heart-wrenching.
Because hey, even you, Ernie, your daughter's trying to get herself what was it, a pink stormtrooper costume?
Yeah, she wants to be Pink Vader. She wants to be Pink Vader.
Pink Vader.
That's cool. I might be able to help you out. I got the name of a company that specializes in costumes. I know they specialize in, like, for Renaissance costumes, but I think they do all type of cosplay. So if you really need, if you're serious, I mean, I got connections. I know people. I know a lot of people out there. I've been around the block a few times. I got the credentials to prove it. I'm telling you.
Oh, well, that's why we do this, man. We got to open up the world to this. I mean, we just can't just keep this to ourselves. We have to spread this around.
Yeah. Well, it was funny. My daughter took down all her Frozen posters this weekend. She's like, I'm done with Frozen, and she put up Ant-Man and a Batman poster. And she wants me at con. Her favorite character of all is the Hulk. Actually, she absolutely loves the Hulk, and she wants some posters of the Hulk. And she's like, if the Hulk is there, or the guy who draws the Hulk is there, I want an autograph and all this stuff. And my son's all into Attack on Titan. So there's going to be some people there from Attack on Titan at the con in July. So he wants a whole bunch of that stuff. So it's thankfully, and it's funny because my ex is not really that nerdy. She has some book love and things like that, but the person I'm currently with, she's all nerderific. So it's kind of weird. I've kind of converted from non-nerd life to a nerd life and kind of drag the kids along with me, which is kind of fun. And she's not close to it, my ex, but she's definitely not like going out watching Star Wars on binge and things like that. So it's kind of an interesting mix with me and the kids now being able to be that nerdy. One of the things that we all do, I think, is, and you mentioned already, Ron, was reading books. So obviously you mentioned a couple of movie book translations. What in your mind, because you're well read, I know that, is a really good conversion where a book converted over to a movie and was actually pretty decent and wasn't completely off base from where it's origin?
One of my favorites has to be the Silence of the Lambs.
Oh.
I'm drawing a blank on the author's name. Thomas Harris, I believe. He wrote Silence of the Lambs, which everybody loves. You know, Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins, and everything. But the adaptation of that from book to movie, I thought was fantastic. More so for the fact that the screenplay version of it won for Best Picture. I mean, that speaks right there.
Wow.
That speaks right there. You know how good of a translation it was. Even better, his other book, which everybody fails to doesn't remember or doesn't think about. The first book in the series was Red Dragon, made into a movie, Manhunter, by Michael Mann. Richard Peterson, I think, was the actor.
Mm-hmm. I remember Manhunter. Yes, I remember that one because that tells the story of Dr. Hannibal Lecter doing the crimes, right?
Well, actually, it's Manhunter was in the search for a different killer, and Hannibal Lecter is introduced in that.
Because they created
it was the actor Brian Cox who was Hannibal Lecter. So Brian Cox, originated the role. Did a very sinister version of it, a very good version. I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it in a while, Manslaughter. It was very good. And then they remade it, I think, with Ralph Fiennes as Red Dragon. And it was a pretty good adaptation as well.
They also did a Red Dragon in 2002 with the original cast as a remake of it as well, with by Brett Radler, I think it is.
Brett Radler?
Yeah, he was the director on that one, and it had the regular cast, Anthony Hopkins, etc. So they remade it to kind of fit into the Silence of the Lamb movies. Of course, the only difference there is by the time he did Red Dragon versus Silence of the Lambs, it was kind of he looked a little older. So it was kind of an interesting way of doing it, but it kind of worked.
So that version with Ray Fiennes, that was directed by Brett Ratner. I don't remember who directed it, but it was around I guess it was that one.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was fantastic. It was a very, very good version of it.
Those are interesting choices because, you think of the typical book-to-movie, big book-to-movie stuff, the sci-fi genre and stuff, and everybody is always complaining about how off they are, how they missed the mark, or how, you mentioned Harry Potter, book to movies. The movies were great, and they covered a lot of the books, but there's just so much missing, and there's some crucial pieces missing and switched around just slightly.
Exactly. You can only do so much.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I didn't like in the Harry Potter series, at least for book to movie, was when Dumbledore died. That scene, it made Harry in the movie version look like he was a coward, where in the book he was actually under a spell and couldn't move. So that's kind of an interesting. It's a subtle point, but that was one of those things. And a lot of times with movies and book translations, subtle little differences can change your view of a character. And if you're, a fanboy or fangirl or fan person, whatever the term is, it can really kind of be like, really, guys? You really? When it's that subtle little twist of a character.
Okay. I have two other movies that I really enjoy, now more so having experienced the books. The first one is Dune, the movie Dune, the Dino De Laurentiis.
Oh, wow.
In the 80s, with McLaughlin. Mm-hmm. Very recently, I listened to an audiobook. It was like 23 hours or 29 hours of this book.
I was just going to ask you, don't tell me you read that book, because that was a hard read, even when I first tried to read it in the 80s.
Exactly. I was a kid. I was very, I was afraid to read such a thick book. I mean, I didn't think I'd understand it. It was such, thick and daunting. But I listened to it in audio form, and I highly suggest there are many versions for audiobooks. A lot of people will be accessing this broadcast, accessing it through YouTube. You can find fantastic audiobooks listed on YouTube. Check them out. Look for an audiobook of your favorite book. Chances are you'll find an audiobook. Or check out Audible. Is a very good program. I use also I get audiobooks all the time, and it's really, really nice because you get, 16, 18, 20 hours. I walk my dog, and I listen to a chapter. I'm listening now to the deGrasse Tyson, talking about the creation of the universe, breaking it down, talking about now the elements on the periodic chart and where they are in space and whatnot. Fascinating stuff. But I listened to Dune on the audiobook, watched the movie, and for what they were working with, they did a really nice version. Brought it to teleplay. They, had to change things around. They had to, do what they needed to do because it's so vast.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's the cutting down of what do you cut out. Also, when you get to a book that length, they also did a TV series, I believe, of Dune as well, a 3-part series back in I want to say 2000, something like that.
Yeah, it was in the late 90s, early 2000 on the Sci-Fi Channel. That would be an interesting program to rewatch. I know I recorded it on VHS tape. Working with it, I still have it in a box in my storage somewhere.
Nice.
But they did a really nice version of it. They really did.
Yeah, I hadn't watched the TV version. Again in ages, but I remember seeing it on there sometimes. But that's a lot of things too. Is one of the other modalities they do with books in converting it over is not to movies but to TV miniseries. They've done that a couple of times, not always as successfully, I feel. As they did with the movies and the bigger budgets. I mean, Sci-Fi has definitely tried its hand at that again with the Dune and a few others that they've run that are based off books. But you have that whole quasi-okay acting that kind of sometimes falls a little flat. I mean, I love variations on the Oz story, and they did. What was it? Tin Man, I think, was a Sci-Fi.
I believe so, yeah.
And I just didn't like it. And I think the story was good. I just don't think the acting was great, and that kind of turned me off it a little bit.
Yeah, I can definitely understand if the actors don't represent what the book character is. Perfect example being Tom Cruise in the Lee Childs movies, the Jack Reacher character. Jack Reacher's character is 6'2", 280 pounds of solid muscle, former MP. He's a little bit shorter than that.
Just a hair, just a touch, just a wee bit. Yeah, no.
Well, he did pull it off. He did do a good job, and they're making another Jack Reacher movie.
I was pleasantly surprised with Jack Reacher. I thought that was a good translation to big screen. I thought it'd be kind of hokey based on the trailers, but when I actually watched it, it actually was a nice watch.
Yeah, it was a good movie. It's a good vehicle for him now, and he definitely, like I said, he's in the middle of filming the second one now. Talks of a third one. Lord knows Lee Child has 20 different books in the Jack Reacher novels. I've read quite a few of them, so definitely a fan of his work. So. And they did do a good job. That's what I'm saying. That translation from print to screen, it's not always what you'd expect. Sometimes you have successes like Tom Cruise. Other times it's like, you got to be kidding me. Matthew McConaughey as Dirk Pitt in Sahara. Matthew McConaughey's a great actor. He's not blue-eyed. You need to have a blue-eyed character. Conan, blue-eyed barbarian, Arnold Schwarzenegger, big body. But just the subtle things. Come on, you need to have continuity. You need to have the blue eyes. It needs to have the look. It needs to match the look. Don't just put the actor in to fill that look. It's a square peg in a round hole. It doesn't always work.
Well, and that brings me to a point I wanted to ask you about. Let's just say you have like the genre of, hey, this is a really good book series or a really good story, and we want to translate it out. One of the things I noticed is that you can either go with trying to get your whole story to contain within a 90 or 100 or 120 minute movie, or do what some people are doing like on TV shows and spread it over 13 hours, and you have 13 hours to spread this world. What do you see as being the trend going forward? Do you see more of these books being adapted to movies, or do you see these movies or screenplays being adapted for like TV shows, just so that way they can get, like you said, the continuity, the experience, just to bring in those two fans together?
I think the way that technology is moving forward, theatrical movies are I don't want to say that they're going to be passé, but it's going to be more of a sheer delight to do occasionally than like people do today with movie theaters. I think the access to the digital format for movies, pirated stuff, torrents that you can find through the internet. A movie is released online the same day it's released in the theater. It's going to get to a point. You have the series now, like Netflix, talking Daredevil, Jessica Jones. You got Power Man coming out. All these fantastic series that, they can make a nice 2.5 hour series, but they know they're going to kill it with direct access. Make it, film them all, have them readily available. That's the future. That's the way it's going to be. Movies, people, why they want to go out? They'll stay home. They'll make theater popcorn at home. Stay home, save the gas. That's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, and that's I can see that being the case too, especially with things, comic books or even book series. I mean, it was interesting they did one, Shannara, was a huge book series, massive length, large books, and they're trying to do it as a TV series on MTV.
Yeah, I was actually reading an article on the website Blastr, Blastr, great website for information, updated news on sci-fi and whatnot. So that's a really great source of information. And just this morning I was looking at an article where they interviewed Terry Brooks, talking to him about, what he wants to do and how the MTV version came about. And he was happy the fact that Jon Favreau was involved, and he saw the cast and he saw the writing. And, he was all for the second series and, making, film versions, TV versions of his books. He realized this is the best way to get as much of the story without diluting it too much for time. Because if you think about it with movies, it's all about how many tickets you can sell, but how many viewings you can have in the theater on that screen in one day. You have a movie that's a 3-hour movie that's less show times, that's less money coming in, so they got to keep trimming it down to 2.5 or 2 hours. More show times available with a shorter film. So that's why you have these great stories. You have all these elements of it that unfortunately have to get trimmed down to what you see. And sometimes editing can only do so much.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that. That it's really almost a matter of how many showings they can get out of it and a profit margin thing rather than a time constraint thing. Because, if you think about, Lord of the Rings, for example, it was a 2-hour movie, but then they released it, on DVD. They added about, an hour to it? To each one. And it was gorgeous and beautiful. They still, did some variation from the book, but they made a good translation.
Well, then keep in mind, this is the one thing I remember about the other trilogy, because I only think there's only one real trilogy, is the fact that everyone loved that Lord of the Rings trilogy. And they were like, Peter Jackson, you could keep doing these movies, we'll go out and watch them, until he did the Hobbit series. And I think the Hobbit series is probably what killed any more of those type of franchises to come back around again. Because I don't know. It grossed several $1 billion, so I'm sure we'll see Silmarillion, however you pronounce that little book that's floating around out there. I have it on my bookshelf. I've never read it, but people want to keep hearing the stories, and they'll sell. I love talking about books to movies. With the original trilogy, my friend hates me to this day that I made him watch 17.5 hours of this movie, the extended editions, back to back to back, in an afternoon. But I have to say, when I saw these movies in the theaters, seeing them in 3D, especially the third one, that battle over Minas Tirith. Oh, you're talking about the original. You're talking about the original, right?
I'm talking the original.
Okay.
You're looking down from above, bird's eye view of the battle going forth right? You see the point of the point of the cliff overlooking the battlefield below. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That battle. And literally, I swear to God, no lie, I started to cry because looking at this, I felt like when Alexander gazed upon the breadth of his domain, he wept. There were no more worlds to conquer. We brought Tolkien to life on the big screen. I thought they did such a beautiful job of creating this world with these digital effects. I would gladly pay tooth and nail for any other Tolkien-esque movie that Jackson wants to would care to make, because they did such a beautiful job. Yeah, he stretched it out to 3 movies for this one. He shouldn't have. The Hobbit itself, could have been told in 2. But it was. I loved it. I thought they were fantastic.
Well, I love the fact too, for at least the Hobbit, the first one. Again, I think, and I'm not sure if this is where you come from, Ernie, with it, is that it didn't need to be a trilogy, or if you had some other issues with it. I know you kind of find them at points a little less than exciting. But when you go into the first movie, The Hobbit, and me and my kids were reading The Hobbit before we went, because we were like, all right, let's see how accurate they're going to be. Mm-hmm. And there's differences. They made changes, obviously, but the first scene in The Hobbit and the first scene in the book and the movie, dialogue-wise, are exactly the same. They literally took it off the freaking page, and my son and I were in the theater going, oh my God. So, I mean, those kinds of things, when you've read the book, and the director, no matter how the overall picture and the overall movie turns out, has that much passion that he's literally taking direct dialogue right from the book, like word for word, and you're like, oh my God. You got to give him some credit for that, at least, if nothing else.
Definitely.
Well, yes. Now, keep in mind this, that my exposure to that whole trilogy, and I hate that we're going off on a tangent about this, about books and movies, but my first exposure to The Hobbit was that Rankin Bass cartoon that came out like late 70s, early 80s.
Oh, God.
All right,
I watched that one. I love the Baskin movies. Those were fantastic.
Weren't they fantastically drawn? Like, they weren't CGI. They were hand drawn. You could see the mistakes. It was great watching them. And then,
I love those.
And then my friend had said, these are books, right? I'm like, what? And he gave me like his copies of the books, and I spent an entire summer rereading those books. And how he invented this whole world. Like, it was so, like, maybe this really did happen. Maybe there really is a Middle Earth. Like, the way he framed it. And then when I heard they were making it like a big-time production, and they were treating it serious, I was like, okay, I'm in. And I saw the first run, the first go, the Fellowship of the Ring. And I was like, okay, well, it drug on a little bit. There was a little too much walking, a little too much orchestration, a little too much like panning out and big crane helicopters, swooping shots. And I get it. He's trying to give us like the vastness of this venture. But to me, it was kind of like, you know what? It doesn't really feel the same like I did when I watched the cartoon. Like, I don't know if there was a generational gap there, or like you said, like I thought that third movie. What was the third movie called?
Of the original trilogy?
Yeah, the original trilogy.
Return of the King.
Return of the King. Great movie. I mean, it could have had ended like 2 times before it actually ended, because I thought the first fade out, I thought it was done, and then I was like, oh, wait a minute, there's more. And then there was like another 45 minutes, and then I'm like, okay, it faded out again. Now it's time to go? Oh, no, wait, there's more. It was like...
Yeah, that was a little much, but it's still, though, I mean, you gotta, the emotion of it, just that, it was just, everybody would say negative things, but you can see it's pure love between the characters of, that trust, that brotherhood, that shared, shared connection from, surviving,
horrible.
It's such a series of events,
Yeah. And like you said, that battle scene, like, I remember reading about the battle, kind of similar to, like, the second set of trilogy, the Battle of the Five Armies. Like, in my mind, reading the book, I had an idea of what that might have looked like. And what Peter Jackson did in that first trilogy, in that battle, I thought was just amazing. I thought it was amazing, like, when, in the second movie, when they did that battle at, I forgot what that was, Helm's Keep or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was insane.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way you could top this. And then he did it. I mean, I give him that. He broke the bank on that one. But, man, I thought that second one, the Battle of Minas Tirith, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was some beautifully done graphics. And, I mean, it wasn't... And it's funny, too, because you think of that... Okay, you think of that and you compare it to, like, a 300, for example. Artistically just as beautiful, but totally different in directions of beauty versus gore. But still has that artistic quality to it. And it's just amazing how there isn't, if you look at it, there isn't like almost no blood, no, there's a little severed heads here and there, but you create a whole war without killing anybody, quote unquote. I thought that was kind of impressive. You don't have to show it.
Yeah.
You don't have to see it.
And it's all CGI, so it's,
But the cool thing, though, with the CGI in that movie, and movies after that movie, too, was if the CGI stands out so much, then it doesn't make the movie work. It has to be CGI that works. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
I mean,
like Hugh Jackman in Van Helsing?
Yeah. Yeah.
With a horse, a stagecoach and a horse jumping a cliff?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
one of my
favorites. For me, the biggest bomb. Well, it's not a bomb because it's still making money. I think there's another movie coming out. The Transformers CGI disasters.
Oh, yeah. A Japanese samurai robot. Okay, I can see them picking up the Japanese samurai robot form. Okay, I can see that. Dinosaurs. Okay, yeah, I can see that.
It's just so bad. It's just so bad.
Yeah.
And
I don't know what one of my favorite movies. This is a guilty pleasure movie. Not many people like it, but F them, I really don't care.
What's that?
Howard the Duck.
I'm
a fan of Howard the Duck.
I love it.
George Lucas.
Dude, my brother.
And
Embrace the
love
duck.
It. Kim Robbins. That scene where he escapes in the ultralight. Hey, welcome back, Phil. Great to be back, Howard. I just love that.
That is pretty twisted.
I love that movie. It's a shame it came out. I think what's his name? When it did, I think that was a shame because then like a year later, Roger Rabbit came out and everyone forgot about Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
Exactly. If they made it animated, which there are talks of redoing it properly with proper CGI, with a proper CGI Howard. Again, I'm standing in line. I support George Lucas in that respect.
Well,
I did like that version. I do have to say.
Well, to be fair, too, they did show a bit. No, because it's a good concept. Because they showed a hair of it. If you remember in that extended scene of Guardians of the Galaxies, they showed Howard. They showed Howard. I would watch that Howard. That was a good-looking Howard. That was a handsome duck right there. That's all I'm saying.
You would look good with Alaron. I don't know.
Dude, it was such a mistimed movie. I still say that one. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai.
That's another of my favorites.
Oh, dude, it's
no matter where you are, there. No matter where you go, there you are.
I mean, John Lithgow and Peter Weller. I mean, who? I mean, come on. How can you not like a movie with those two guys in it?
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
It falls into that same category of those weird 80s movies that it's like they had such quip and people still use and talk about them to this day. You know, and you see it in other movies. You see it in other movies.
There's always a reference to it in something, which is cool. It's a tip of the hat, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's fun.
So with Howard the Duck, did you ever get a chance to read those graphic novels, or did you just see the movie and was just like, oh, this is a cool movie?
Well, I knew of Howard the Duck. I had seen the comics. I I was aware of the comics, I guess I should say, but I never actually read any of them. You know, I'd seen them, I flipped through them, but I just never. See, with comics, I collected comics when I was in high school. For about 3, 4 years, 5 years, I have a collection of stuff, and that's about it. I hadn't really followed stuff in years. It wasn't, I pick up stuff every now and then. So I guess maybe I lose some nerd cred for that, but I still try to stay on top of things.
Well, to be fair, because I mean, we talk about this occasionally too. Ernie and I try to stay on top of stuff too in the comic world, but it's like it's just
everything changes every other year.
Yeah, it's just so much.
DC, even newer DC.
Mm-hmm.
No, wait, here's a new DC. It gets too confusing.
Yeah. I just actually finished reading the multiverse story of Spider-Man, which actually was pretty good. My friend loaned me their graphic novel of all the comics in one. And the prices are outrageous. Like, I think he paid like $70 for the thing or $80 for the thing. It was like crazy. But it was like every comic that was part of the series. It was great, but it's like half the stuff in there is from other comics and it's from other universes. And you're like, all right, I know I'm missing out on so much here. I mean, I'm just going to enjoy the story for what it is, but I know there's more that I'm just totally missing out on.
Yeah. I try to look at stuff. I go into Tate's Comics in Lauderhill, and I just look at the wall of stuff, and I just shake my head, and it's like, oh my God, how can you catch up?
Yeah.
It's daunting.
Where do you even start? I mean, that's the biggest thing is where do you even start? And time is a valuable thing. You don't have much of it, so you got to use it for what's the most important. But if you were to catch up, I mean, I'll ask this of everyone: if you were to catch up on a specific comic or a specific character in comics, what would be your first choice? What would be? I need to catch up. If I had the time to do it, which one would you catch up on first?
Oh gosh, that's a difficult question. Which kid you love the best? I mean, there's so many series. X-Men, Wolverine alone.
I'd almost want to do that one because I know it, quote unquote, ends, if you will. And spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't read the comics, but I mean, with the Death of Wolverine series, there's an end there. And he comes back in some weird form, blah blah blah. But it is an end. There is a finite point there, and it's like, well, at least I know where it ends. And you can kind of base it around that.
Yeah, but we all know comics is just the second act of a story. We all know that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know what the third act is, but they'll never finish that act, I don't think.
Are you telling me that Wolverine dies? You are kidding, right?
No!
I know. In a stupid way from what I heard, but yeah.
He's only dead until he's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Second act.
Well, and that's the thing too that I keep talking to people about when they talk about the superhero movie genre and how the superhero movies don't match the comic book stories. And I'm like, dude, the two big boys, DC and Marvel, both believe in the multiverse concept. They do. They've mentioned it thousands of times. Who's to say the story they picked is from the classic universe that everybody knows? It could be from an alternate universe storyline. You don't know. They ain't going to tell you, so don't worry about it. Just enjoy.
Well, that's why I try to just take it for what it is, and I take everything that the DC and Marvel universe throw at me with a grain of salt, and know that they're going to get my money. There's no point in resisting. Their ticket purchase is pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah, right. For pretty much anything.
Yeah, so I could deal.
Yeah,
I could deal.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a real pleasure having you on. Definitely friend of the podcast. Is there anything you'd like to plug before every of us go home and go to bed? Because I'm tired.
Well, actually, I am working on a project now for a Kickstarter campaign.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm actually doing something for a book of poetry that I've been working on for the last 30 years. I've compiled a book of poetry, and literally I just have to do a video So I'm reaching out to some friends to get some help to do a video for myself for Kickstarter. And within the next couple of weeks, I'm hoping to have my Kickstarter campaign up. And hopefully, if people hear this, maybe they'll like some of my poems. I'll be more than happy to share some. I have,
awesome.
We were talking about books before.
Mm-hmm.
One of my poems I actually wrote. Let me just read it to you.
Okay, go ahead.
It's called My Friends. They've been my friends, my companions, keeping me company when I needed it the most. Whether it's cold or raining outside, or even if it's as bright as a summer's afternoon, they are there for me. Some of them are big, some small. Some of them are long, while others are short. Yet no matter their size or shape, each one is perfect unto itself. Some make me laugh, while others make me cry, and while some frighten me, others console me. Each one is full of surprises, no two the same. They wait my call to enlighten, inform, entertain, and to teach. Each one a memory, a friend from long ago. Still there are some whose acquaintance I have yet to make, whose adventures have yet to begin. They sit on my shelves, my books, and I love them all.
And that is how to end a podcast. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
We'll definitely. Do we have a site yet for it, or we'll talk more about that when you have the site up for Kickstart?
You got it. I mean, like I said, I'm just I have everything completed. I just need to do a video and give them my credit card number to hopefully start receiving monies in. We'll see what happens.
Awesome.
But it's on the way.
Well, I'm gonna go read a book, Ernie. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely in the mood to now read a book or two. Have a couple on my shelf that I want to read. But for right now, Ernie, if you do us the grand honors, as always,
peace out.
All right, thank you so much, Ron. Hit us up in our usual locations, and we'll definitely be talking to Ron again about more books and more fun. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye.